Like you said, he's got 3 rings, right? And just to clarify, none of those rings are with Connor, right?
Is Fraser Minton going to have more points than Safkovsky this year? Fraser Minton sucks at hockey. This guy might not even be an NHLer, so we got to settle down on that one.
Adelaide, no. -160 on will they show her holding a drink in her hand.
They are 2 points behind the St. Louis Blues in the wild card, and they are.
Oh, the Blues are dog water. The Blues suck. The Blues are the worst of those 4 teams that I mentioned by a mile.
And
they're not a good hockey team.
Care, like have some set of balls, have some response, have some pride for what the hell goes on the ice. It's so absurd.
I'm looking forward to the parade, but that's going to be later in the year.
I'd rather have so money in that than have Alber Soderblom. I would rather stack a bunch of garbage that I have in the corner of my room over here than have Alber Soderblom in that. He's
May 22nd, welcome back to Edgework, presented by Pinnacle. I'm Zack Phillips, joined here today by Alex Moretto, Rob Pizzola, Matt Alber to help us break down Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, as well as look ahead a little bit to the Western Conference Finals between the Dallas Stars, the Edmonton Oilers. So we'll be breaking all that down. We'll be breaking down Game 1 of tonight's game. We'll be breaking down Game 1 of tomorrow night's game. And we'll be answering questions in the chat for anybody who has those as well. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind people that today's show, as always, is sponsored by Pinnacle. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook in business for over 25 years. You can find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly. Not available in the US. So head on over to Pinnacle. And remember, as we bring up series prices here today, as we bring up Game 1 of the Eastern Conference, Game 1 of the Western Conference, some of the best prices you're going to see, whether it's sides, totals, first periods, no matter how you're looking at it, it's going to be at the Pinnacle Sportsbook. So why not add that to your list of outs today? Let's get into today's game. Let's get into this series here as well. We saw a tiny bit of movement since yesterday's series preview that we put out with myself, Alber, and Moretto, where we were talking about the Rangers and the Panthers series. As we look here this morning over on Pinnacle, we see this one up plus 133 on the Rangers, now minus 153. That's very marginal movement, but it is a little bit of movement in the direction of the Panthers. I think yesterday when we put out the previews at minus 148, Moretto gave that out as his best bet. Moretto, did you kind of see more money coming in on the Panthers since yesterday as we approach and get closer and closer to the start time of Game 1 here?
But to be fair, I think that I think we said it was pretty much settled where it should have been settled. Nice to see a little bit more money coming in on the Cats, though. I think there's never enough money on this Panthers team. I think everyone wants to see Alber in pain at the end of the series. I think the world is kind of united here and has bet this up, and who knows how far it can go. I think we're only seeing the beginning of this. But no, I didn't expect it to move that much, and it hasn't moved that much. But yeah, any move in the Florida direction is a move in the right direction, in my opinion.
Alber, would you agree with this statement?
That everyone wants to see me in pain. Yeah, probably. That seems pretty accurate. I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with that. I think the price is right around right. Like I mentioned, probably minus 135 is somewhere around the right number. We moved a couple cents in the Panthers' direction. The market hated the Rangers all year. The market continues to not like the Rangers. It shouldn't be a surprise, certainly. It's not the best matchup for the Rangers. So no, it does not really surprise me that an elite team like the Panthers is taking more money at this point.
Rob, we didn't get to hear your opinion on the series at all, the series price. We are looking at this one, pretty much settled where we're going to be heading into Game 1 now ahead of the 7 games that are about to take place. What are your thoughts on where the market has moved and where it's currently sitting at today?
Yeah, I think this is a fair price. So I make the Panthers just under 60% to win, 59.7%. So I'm actually right at minus 148, which was the price when you guys were recording yesterday. I think to a really casual fan, there's going to be a lot of appetite to back the Rangers in this series. I think a lot of people, they just look at it and they're like, the Rangers have kind of been disrespected all year. It's a very good team, put up a ton of points in the regular season. And I kind of feel like they have been a little bit undervalued by market. But I did think that towards the latter half of that series against Carolina did start to play a lot better at 5-on-5. The issue with the Hurricanes is that even with the addition of Jake Gensel, they just have trouble putting the puck in the net, and they generate a lot of quantity, but when you don't have a lot of quality finishers, it's really hard to get over that hump against Igor Shesterkin, great goaltender. I think Florida does a lot of what Carolina does well, but they just finish a lot better than the Carolina Panthers. So I do think the Rangers are in tough. That's not to say that they can't win the series, but it's not a price where I have any interest in backing the New York Rangers right now. For game one in specific tonight, I think the price is fine. I kind of have it as a coin flip game, but I do think Florida is going to present a lot of matchup problems for the Rangers.
Now, let's get into this game one here tonight, because we did do the series preview. Get to hear some of your thoughts there, Rob, on where the price is at, where the number's at. Alber, I want to go to you first, just based on what you said yesterday in the series preview, what your thoughts were on how the series might play out, how these two teams might match up, and more specifically, your thoughts on the Rangers and how they might strategically approach this series and playing against this Panthers team. Do you still hold the same thought process as we head to game one here and we look at the numbers currently sitting? Rangers minus 103, Panthers minus 105, best price available, and a total of 5.5 in this game right now?
Yeah, so I do feel a little differently on a couple of things than yesterday. So I talked about maybe wanting to play some unders here. The more I think about it, the more I think the Rangers are going to want to open this series up. So I kind of look at what they've done in the playoffs so far, right? And they played Washington, who sucks. You could play the Caps however you want. You're going to win that series in, 4, 5, 6 games. But then you go to the Canes, and you know exactly how you have to play against them. Like, you're so familiar with them. You know all you have to do against Carolina is take away the low slot for the most part, make them shoot from the outside. Carolina is more than happy to just fire shots from the outside all day. You're going to give up the high deflection goal here and there, which they did in the series. And you know what? You're going to live with those and move on. The Panthers aren't going to do that. They're not going to settle for those outside shots. The Panthers are just so comfortable playing tough playoff hockey that they're going to get around the net. They're going to battle around the front. They're going to score a lot of goals around the front of the net. So I don't think getting into these low event, tough playoff style games is really what you want to do here. So I do think that, and I'm really curious to see if the coaching staff goes this route, but I do think that you're willing to take some chances and maybe try to open this game and open this series up. Because I think that's where your edge may come in against Florida. And you kind of add the fact that you're getting Filipino back tonight, and he's going to be back on that third line. I think that adds a little more scoring touch that you really didn't have on that line when it was Will Cooley down there. So I just played the under a few minutes ago, 5.5 minus 106. I like it at all these minus 110s that are still there. I do think that tonight could be a very wide open game.
You played the under?
Oh, sorry. No, the over. Okay.
I was like, wow, that was a really good, actually a surprisingly good breakdown from Alber on the game. And you make all these points for the over, but then gives out the under as a play.
The hardest 180 in show history.
I've been on the show with Moretto for too long. All I'm used to is hearing the word under. So I think that got in my head a little bit there.
Low event.
I thought you were just doing like a reverse mush on yourself. You're like, oh, here's all the points for the over. Here's why I like the over. Here's what I think about the over. I'm going under. Everyone else, you take the over.
That's the classic dumbass content creator move, right? It's like list off all the reasons why the game is going to go over, but then finish it up by saying, and the books know that. They want you to take the over.
The only thing you could have added there was a Vegas nose.
Yeah. Rob, before we started the show, you were kind of mentioning you had a similar thought process on tonight's game or where the total was currently sitting at as well.
Yeah, I really like the over tonight. I've been playing a lot of totals over the course of the playoffs. I've made it known in the past of how the playoff series are typically called. And that doesn't change a whole lot in round 3 and round 4, honestly. You tend to have the refs set the tone a little bit earlier in the series. You get a lot more power plays in the early going. And then as the series goes on, there's more at 5-on-5. Obviously, a lot of people get scared. It's like Bobrovsky and Shesterkin. You got good goaltenders. Don't really want to take the over. I kind of think that both the goalies are Shesterkin especially is amazing. Bobrovsky, maybe a little bit overrated, but still above average, good goalie. I think they're coming off series where they were made to look a little bit better than they actually are. Carolina, they shovel a lot at the net. The power play was frankly horrendous for the majority of that series. On the other side of things, Bobrovsky played the Bruins, not a lot of offensive scoring touch. They really just can't get him moving side to side. I think there's a good opportunity to play the over. I think actually Matt made some really good points here on the pace of play in this game. Hedl coming back provides some additional depth to them on the third line. You look at the regular season games between these teams, all of them hit 6 goals or more, but it's not just that they hit 6 goals or more. They were played at a high pace as well. 2 very good skating teams. As long as the ice can be good for tonight's game, it's always a question, but as long as the ice can be good for tonight's game, over 5.5 to me is a really good look here. I have that as like a 4.5% edge.
I don't know. It's pretty warm in New York today.
I was gonna say that's something we haven't factored in here to the handicap for tonight's game. Alber, are you working at MSG?
Yeah.
Well, Moretto, does that
tough.
change anything for you?
Gotta factor that in.
I mean, it's just bad luck for the Rangers. So that helps, probably helps the Panthers to have Alber in the building there. But yeah, I honestly was expecting to be a little bit, not contrarian, but I thought maybe me coming on here and talking about why the over might be a nice play was I obviously didn't join as early as these other 2 guys did before the show. But yeah, I didn't anticipate everyone liking this over. So I guess here we are, kind of consensusing this, which is terrible news for anyone who has already tailed, to have this 3-way best bet going right now. But I agree with everything Alber said, honestly, where if the Rangers want to play this low event, defend your net, grind it out type of hockey game, the Panthers will grind them into oblivion. And that is just not the way the Rangers are going to win this series. They have to open things up and lean on Shesterkin. Be like, you know what? Let's open things up a little bit. Let's get this back and forth, because that's the only way they're going to generate enough offense is if they open this game up a little bit and hope that Shesterkin is able to just take care of what he does at the one end. And you kind of have that to lean on. So yeah, I do expect this to be a lot more open. I think Florida's comfortable playing that way for sure. So yeah, that all lends itself to an over. I am a little bit more inclined. I'm not on it, but I am a little bit more inclined to take the Panthers here in game 1. I talked about how I just think they do everything the Rangers do, and they just do it better. And I do think there is a pathway to this being a quicker series. That being said, I think you're better off kind of taking some of those like -1.5, -2.5 series derivatives if you're going to go that way, as opposed to backing the Panthers in game 1. But I do think the Panthers are it's Panthers or nothing on the side. That being said, it is nothing. But yeah, the over is a good look. I agree with that 100%.
It's not nothing on this. It's nothing on the side, but it's not nothing on the game here. We are going to lock in the over 5.5 -108 as our first best bet, and not just a best bet, not just a double best bet, but a triple best bet to start the show here. So take those.
Are we going to go? Are we going to go 1.5 units on this? We're going to go 150.
5-unit whale play. This is our play of the month. No,
I honestly like it too much for it. Who's in the chat there that said 1-0 starting the third? Yeah,
Peter Panic.
Yeah, it does feel like when everything aligns. Like I really like the over. I really do. I do think that this series is going to play more open than people think, and I think if you're the Rangers, you're fine with that, and you just say like, oh, we have the better goalie. You want to play open and trade chances? Fine. We have the guy that makes some massive saves here, and they're confident in themselves. Like the Rangers don't see themselves like we see them, and except for Alber. I mean, Alber sees them the same way that they do. Yeah. But like a lot of people watch and they're like, yeah, the Rangers aren't that good. There's like a confidence level and a belief that they have a lot of high-profile players who can put the puck in the back of the net. They believe they could play with anyone, and I think it'll be a high pace. And let's hope the 1-0 at the end of the third or starting the third confirmed is. Let's hope it's 6-0.
There are 2 teams that are very good at converting their high danger chances too. I know we have 2 really good goalies, but 2 teams that when they get in the right positions and when they need to convert their chances, they do. So that plays into this as well.
Alber, I just want to know, what's your personal confidence level? I'm not talking about betting. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. You're a Rangers fan, Eastern Conference Finals, taking on the Panthers here. How are you actually feeling?
I mean, I obviously felt very good going into last series because I loved the matchup. I don't love the matchup here. So even though I think these two teams are those being Carolina and Florida are relatively even, I don't like the matchup here. I don't. So yeah, I did. Like I said, I thought minus 135, minus 140 Florida was a fair series price. I think there's a very high chance that this is 1-1 after two, and you kind of go from there. You got to steal one in Florida. I don't know. It's just I'm very curious what kind of style of hockey Laviolette and his staff want to play in this series. Like I think if they kind of go into this with the mentality that they can play the same way they did against Carolina, the series is probably done in 5 to 6. Like Florida's just not going to settle for a million outside shots, and you're not going to be able to just live with a high deflection goal here and there. They're going to battle you around the net all series, and I'm curious if the Rangers, who are obviously a little less, let's call it tough and physical, are going to be able to kind of hold their own against Florida in the dirty areas in the series.
All right. Well, the chat seems to think that this one is Panthers handedly. 66% of the chat voted for the Panthers to win this series. Obviously, they're 34%, excuse me. On the other side, voting for the Rangers. New poll up there now as we head to the next series. Head over to the Western Conference. So if you do want to vote, you can check that out. The Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers. Who do you think is going to win the Western Conference? As well, hit the like button here on the stream. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It does help support the show, and we do appreciate that. Keep sending questions in the chat. We'll try to answer those throughout the course of the show here today. But, gentlemen, let's take a look over at the Western Conference. We got the Dallas Stars taking on the Edmonton Oilers. And as I had pulled up over on the Pinnacle Sportsbook, you can find series prices for this one currently sitting Dallas Stars minus 132, the Oilers plus 115. If you want to look at some of the series spread prices, you can find the Stars minus 1.5 plus 165, the Oilers plus 1.5 minus 191 there as well. As far as this series goes, we know kind of everyone's rooting interest from what we had during the regular season, what we were going through in round 1, round 2 here, and it was a lot loaded up on the Dallas Stars. Moretto, at this point here now, you're into the Western Conference Finals. Is there anything else you'd be looking to add here on Dallas? Are you finding any value in the number where it's just too good, you have to play it? What are your thoughts on the price and kind of how you view these two teams matching up here?
I didn't add to it just because I am sitting on so much Panthers West right now that I don't really feel the need to.
Stars.
But honestly, Stars. I really do like the price on the Stars though. It's been bet up a little bit, depending on where you look. I think we're sitting now at like minus 132-ish. Yeah, there were like a lot of minus 120 openers that I really liked with the Stars still. Honestly, I don't know how many times we have to see it. These top heavy teams, these like kind of perimeter teams that, you know, they play the style of hockey that the Oilers do. It's not conducive to playoff success. And they made light work of the Kings in round 1. Fair enough. Kings aren't exactly a great team, and they had been kind of spiraling for a long time. That Canucks series was an absolute grind, and the Canucks did not play well really at any point in that series. And they still made that very, very difficult on the Oilers. I'm just not anywhere close to where the market is on this Oilers team right now. I think defensively, that second pairing of Nurse and Desharnais, then you have like Ceci on the third pair, like their decor is going to get eaten alive by the Stars team that can roll 4 lines and can just continue to come at you just relentless on that forecheck. I don't see how their defense and goaltending holds up in this series. I really don't. And maybe, you know, famous last words, obviously the excellence of Draisaitl and McDavid can, you know, undo a lot of that. But the Stars are very much like, this is a team that's able to shut down top talent. We saw it against the Avs, who a team that profiles very similar to this Oilers team, and how comfortable that series was. Honestly, that series could have been a sweep. Like Tanev has been exceptional this playoffs. They have that second pairing that is just going to go out there and play the tough matchups and just completely negate what other teams' top players are going to do. They have to split up Draisaitl and McDavid at this point, because if they don't, I think they're in a lot of trouble. Either way, I still don't think they're getting enough secondary offense to compete with the Stars team that is getting a ton of offense from up and down this lineup. Defensively can just beat you any way they want to. I think this is a very good matchup for the Stars, and maybe famous last words, whatever. But I know that some of those public models are pretty high on the Oilers. I know some of them even have the Oilers favored. I very much disagree with that.
Yeah, some of those public models are fairly high on the Oilers that we've seen, kind of even some favoring the Oilers heading into this series, Moretto, that we've seen. Rob, I don't know where you're kind of at. I know you haven't been as high on the Stars or publicly as high on the Stars as some of the rest of the Edgework team. Where do you come into them on this series?
So I'm actually very high on the Stars. I'm also just very high on the Oilers and have been for a while now. To me, this is a very challenging series to handicap because if I was going to nitpick one thing about the Dallas Stars, it would probably be that, I mean, Roope Hintz was their number one center pretty much all year. And Roope Hintz is a very good player. Don't get me wrong. He's just like not a true number one center. And now he's dealing with an undisclosed injury, which people don't really know what it is. He could be back. They just keep listing him as day-to-day. He could play game one. He might, it might linger. I don't know. But I don't love the Stars as much without him in the lineup. I just think that you elevate Wyatt Johnston to a 1C, and he's a great player. I love him. He's playing really good in the playoffs, but he's kind of, it just creates issues across the lineup overall. To me, Edmonton made a big move taking Darnell Nurse away from Cody Ceci and splitting them up, because that pairing was just an absolute abomination. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it before in my entire life. They've played a lot better since then. But who knows? That could just be because, sorry, so many apologies. But I think Vancouver was a pretty weak team, even though they took Edmonton to 7. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. I don't want to get involved with the series price. If I did have to bet the series, I probably would bet the Oilers, but I'm not going to, and I haven't. I'm looking at this more on a game-by-game basis just to see how Dallas lines up for this. But there are some good points by Alex. I mean, typically speaking, if you have good depth, I would call this great depth for the Stars, that tends to win out versus the teams that are just top-heavy. And Edmonton has a lot in the bottom 6 that leaves much to be desired. Like the Corey Perry trade, he's useless. He's useless as a player nowadays. Might as well just be a ghost on the bench. There's a lot lower in that lineup that the Stars can take advantage of. Dadonov on the 4th line is absurd relative to who he's going to be going up against in this series. But it's challenging. I mean, honestly, think it's just a good series price, and I'll attack it game by game. The one thing I will say as an advocate for the Stars is there's a lot of guys in that lineup that really haven't gotten it going yet. Tyler Seguin has 3 goals in the playoffs. Jamie Benn has 3 goals in the playoffs. Pavelski has 1 goal in the playoffs. Matt Duchene has 2. They haven't even gotten the real secondary scoring yet. And that makes them incredibly dangerous. So player props, I think, very much in play on some of the top Dallas guys because Edmonton can give up goals in bunches sometimes, especially with their goaltending situation.
Rob, are there any series player props that you would want to attack ahead of this one starting rather than game by game?
I'm going to go game by game. Honestly, I'm not huge on the series props because then you're kind of locked into it. It talked about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins earlier in the playoffs or going into the playoffs as a guy who was I think the final 20 Oilers games of the regular season, he scored 2 goals, but he was playing power play 1 consistently on a line with McDavid or Draisaitl. And that's kind of manifested itself into really good plays recently where he's really upped his game. To me, I'm looking at the prices on Joe Pavelski to score goals. Look at the game 1 price tomorrow. You can see plus 330 on Pavelski. Pavelski has 1 goal in the playoffs, 2 assists. Pavelski has 52 Corsi attempts in the playoffs. He's playing 18 minutes a game. It's going to come for him at some point. It's just going to he's on power play 1. He's going to be playing on one of the top 2 lines. We're getting to a point here where this is just has to turn. He's shooting 5.5% in the playoffs. I mean, you look at his career shooting percentage, it's almost 13%. He shot 14% in the regular season this year, 15% last year. It's going to turn at some point. So to me, Pavelski is the guy that I want to target pretty regularly in this series at these prices. You basically need him to score once every 3 games, and I'm not so sure about the Oilers back end at all. So that's my guy. I'm riding the Joe Pavelski train for this series.
Alber, is there any attack angle that you have on this series outside of just anything you've already loaded up on Stars going into this one?
Yeah, I agree on the game by game angle. I don't have anything else going in. I do have some Dallas West stuff pending here. I agree with pretty much everything Moretto said, and I touched on a lot of it last week, where like these high end teams without a lot of depth just they can win a series or so. Like LA wasn't that good, but they just don't go far, right? Like we see this every single year. So yeah, like I love Dallas in the spot. I like them a lot against Colorado for kind of a lot of the same reasons. We'll come back to that. But also like Dallas just got done playing a team that does profile very similarly to this. And like, even when they kind of ended up winning game 6 in overtime, like you hear Matt Duchene talking about after the game, like they kind of realized that like, that's how they need to play against those top heavy teams. And kind of, if they can wear out that top line, like they can attack the rest of that lineup. And I think it's a very similar situation here when they look at Edmonton. Like if they can find a way to keep McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins even somewhat in check, like the rest of that Oilers lineup is very exploitable for a team that is extremely deep, even if they do lack that top end talent. So yeah, no, I do like Dallas quite a bit here. I think their depth wins out here for sure.
I just add 2 things too about the depth conversation. Niels Lundqvist, who has been playing for the Stars because Yanni Hakanpää's been out, is playing like 5 minutes a night. They're basically playing with 5 defensemen, which is not ideal. Hakanpää's going to be back very early in this series. Probably not game 1, maybe game 2, maybe game 3. Hakanpää's a very good defenseman who can play top 4 at this level, but will likely be on the 3rd pairing. And like that's a huge boost for them defensively as well, to not have to, basically have one guy who's a borderline liability out there who they can't even trust to throw on the ice. The other thing is Adam Henrique, who's like one of the few like very good depth guys for the Oilers, probably is going to be coming back earlier at one point in the series. Instead, he's not available for game 1. This guy is basically dealing with a high ankle sprain. He will, I'm sure, come back at one point, and yeah, he's not going to be effective. It's just they're going to force him back because they have nothing else right now in the bottom 6. We saw, I know, like, I don't want to start the whole Mitch Marner conversation. There's a lot, but like Marner was likely dealing with some sort of high ankle sprain earlier in the season that was still lingering in the playoffs. We saw how ineffective he was. You can attribute that to whatever you want. That's fine. But like, that's a very difficult injury to play through. Obviously, like they're kind of backed into a corner where they're going to have to force him back into the lineup. It's not going to be pretty. So like that, they're basically going to play this series without him or with a very, hampered Adam Henrique. And that's not, it's just not like, it just plays into the fact that the Stars are getting even deeper and the Oilers are just not getting reinforcements back there. Yeah.
On the depth conversation, Alber is just getting roasted in the chat. The Wednesday is, his confidence level might be high in the Rangers, but his self-confidence is going to be at an all-time low by the end of this show. On the depth conversation, just with the Stars, like they rolled the Avalanche late in that series, but I don't think it's the same top-end talent. Like I don't, because once Nichushkin went out of that series, I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion because it can happen, but Rantanen did not look good this playoffs. Like, I don't know if he's dealing with something or he just did not look good. It was really McKinnon carrying the load at forward. And I think Edmonton's like high end is a lot higher than the way Colorado ended the series, if I'm going to put it that way. And like, I don't want to compare Evan Bouchard to Cale Makar. Like Makar is special, but he had a down year. Like Bouchard has come on quite a bit. I think Edmonton, if Edmonton had matched up against Colorado, I would have very likely been betting them at market prices that would have been available because I think that they'd be that much better without Nichushkin. So I that's what worries me a lot about it's like the Stars did dominate Colorado towards the end of that series, but once Nichushkin went out, it's just not even a real team. Like it is a real team, but it's just not the quality of what Edmonton will bring forth, in my opinion.
That's fair. Cale Makar, though, is also like one of those, game breakers as well. Pretty much one of like best defensemen in the NHL or close to it. And I think there's something to be said that like McKinnon is consistently just a dog in the playoffs. He's unreal. Yeah. So to be able to limit him the way they did, and like you look at, and now again, this is kind of narrative-y, and this is also like very like we're making assumptions here. I'm making assumptions here, but Connor McDavid does not look like Connor McDavid right now. There have been like rumblings coming out of like Edmonton that he's dealing with something, a bit of an injury, and that's limiting him. I can see that very much being the case. He did not play a ton in game 7, especially early on in that game. And what was a tight game? Like, his minutes were way down. He scored 2 goals in the playoffs so far. Like, I think McDavid is not at 100% health. And again, you're not going to like necessarily bet on something like that without, any sort of confirmation. But like, I think there is something there.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on the point you made on Lundqvist, like, he wasn't playing at all. Like, the most he played in that entire series was 6 minutes in game 4, and that was a game they won 5-1. And it was so bad that he didn't even get dressed after game 5. Like, he didn't even get dressed for game 6. They played Alex Petrovic instead, and he played 2 minutes and 28 seconds in game 5 at home. So it's like, yeah, obviously you kind of get out of that. Like, it is hard to get through a full playoffs, obviously kind of rolling 5 deep. So like, the fact that they won't have to now will certainly help them in the series.
That Vegas game 7 was Niels Lundqvist came out for his first shift of the game, made a mistake that let Vegas tie it, and he basically saw the ice like once again for the rest of the game. It's pretty bad.
He was just a body in that game, basically. Yeah. It's like Alber on the Wednesday show.
Niels Lundqvist.
Alber just getting absolutely.
The chat wasn't doing enough. You had to fire one off too.
It took 31 minutes today, Alber, but I succumbed to. I just couldn't get through it any further. Could not go any further.
Don't worry. Save receipts.
Last thing I want to ask you guys before we get off the series preview and actually touch on game 1 here. Just predictions. Who's going to win how many games? Rob, we'll start with you.
Both series?
Just the Stars Oilers one here. Sorry.
I'll say Stars win in 7.
Okay. Moretto?
I will say I'm going to say Stars in 5. Skinner implodes a little bit defensively. They can't get a stop, and it ends pretty quick.
Alber?
Split the difference. Stars in 6.
I got Stars in 6 here as well. That's probably not a great sign here all the way around. 4-person sweep on the Stars. So that's tough to see, but let's get into game 1 here. Tomorrow night, it's taking place 8:30 p.m. Just a reminder for everybody who's watching right now, we're going to do today's show covering tonight's game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and we're going to also cover game 1 of the Western Conference Finals for tomorrow, so you guys can get some takeaways, get a preview of some of those numbers, maybe find some best bets. We won't have a show tomorrow morning, but we will be back on Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time to cover game 2 of both again. So covering Friday's game and Saturday's game. So if you guys are wondering what's going on, where the shows are at, that's the schedule as we go on here. Just going to cover both games into one show over the next couple weeks as we approach the Stanley Cup Finals. So let's get into game 1 here. We see Dallas currently sitting -127, the Oilers +113 for this game. Total of 6 for the most part across the board. You can see some 6.5s plus money on the over of those 6.5s right now. Moretto, I want to go to you first and get your thoughts on this game, where we see the price at right now, and if you have any interest in getting involved in this one.
Not really. I don't think I'm going to be betting a ton of these game-to-game numbers, at least early on. I want to see like a little bit more of this McDavid situation. I think if you do think the fact that he's injured, then hopping on Dallas early on is probably a great look. Dallas having a little bit more of that layoff, right? We always talk about how, having like teams coming off that longer layoff. Edmonton obviously still kind of dialed in, having played just a few days ago in that game 7. So don't really have any interest in backing the Stars in game 1. I think defensively, the Stars are going to be able to contain Edmonton, and just especially on home ice where they can control the matchups, they can get the pairings and the lines they want out against McDavid. So I do think that lends itself a little bit to an under, but that being said, I just don't trust Skinner and the Oilers defense to like keep this, keep them contained. So yeah, I don't know. Do they try and just force this into like a back and forth game and just fight fire with fire? I still don't necessarily think that works for them, because Dallas has just that much more fire. Obviously maybe not the same top end fire, but like they do have more firepower up and down that lineup. So my gut instinct tells me that the under is probably worth a look here, just based on the fact that at home the Stars are going to be able to control the matchups and limit what Edmonton can do. And I think Edmonton's going to want to play a little bit more low event and shelter Skinner a little bit and try and shelter their deep pairings. So that does lend itself to an under, but yeah, at pretty much like the sixes across the board. I'm not really interested. If the over sees some money and we can get like, some like minus 120, 6.5, something like that, that's when I'll probably jump in.
Rob, you touched on the fact that you look at a guy like Pavelski, his anytime goal prop currently sitting at plus 330. Is that the only way that you would be looking at this game one here?
You could look towards him in terms of shots as well. I make Dallas minus 116 for game one. So I'm kind of like in the no man's land right now. Not going to bet probably side or total just based off where my numbers are in the game for tomorrow, unless something fundamentally changes. But I am going in on Pavelski. I will stick to my word for at least the first couple games of this series. And listen, I mean, he's slow. He's old. I get it. He's going to get power play one time against a penalty kill that's not very good, in my opinion. And he's playing with good line mates, generally speaking. It's not like he's not putting pucks at the net. Like his individual expected goals for the playoffs right now is 3.5. He's scored 1. He had the only player that's still left that's underperformed their individual expected goals by more is Sam Reinhart for the Florida Panthers so far. So I like Pavelski goal scorer. You can go like $30 at plus 330 or so. But yeah, I mean, JH is like what Oiler PK, not very good. The Oilers have benefited from who they've played. Let's just put it that way. But overall, I like the Dallas Stars to move the puck around quite a bit. And I mean, Kings and Canucks are propping up what I think the Oilers PK really is.
Okay, so we'll lock in Pavelski, anytime goal, plus 330. We're going to go for a third of a unit or $30 there at plus 330 to win a full unit for us. So that is the first bet that we'll lock in on this one. Alber, any other thoughts on this game? Any other bets for yourself?
So I haven't played anything here. I do lean to the over though instead of Moretto's under. I look at kind of Edmonton, right? And they played LA, who really wants to slow every game down. They played Vancouver, who clearly wanted to slow every game down. Now you go against Dallas, who doesn't really want to do that quite as much, I don't think. Kind of throw in the fact that Skinner looks, let's call it iffy. I could see this series being a lot more back and forth. And I certainly look at Edmonton in a similar kind of lens that I see the Rangers in this series, where it's like, I think their best chances may be to try to open this up and hope that their elite talent can just catch fire. Because I don't think they really want to get into these 2-1 kind of games with a team like Dallas, who's extremely comfortable doing so. And you look at Dallas, right? Like even that series against Colorado, who we've said profiles very similar to Edmonton, had quite a few chances in there. So I do think that this series could certainly have some goals. I'm probably not going to get involved in it unless we start getting plus money on the 6, which I don't really see happening. But that's kind of my lead for now.
I hope that you're right too, because if the Oilers think that they can get into a back and forth and try and play like an open-ended game with a Stars team that just has way more guys that can put the puck in the net and a much better goalie in Ottinger, I think that will definitely lend itself to Dallas finishing this a little bit quicker, I think.
All right, well, I think that'll do it for today's show here. We got a little bit of a series preview of the Panthers Rangers yet again. Break down game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals taking place here tonight. Also looking ahead to the Western Conference Finals between the Stars and the Oilers, doing a preview there, breaking that down and giving out some best bets in both. And if you want to see our best bets, you want to follow along with us for the playoffs, see where we've been at, see all the picks given out, how we've done throughout the course of this season and into the playoffs here, you can head on over to the BetStamp app in the Find Better section as Edgework HQ and see all of our picks. For our picks here today, we do have 2 best bets, one for tonight's game, one for tomorrow's. The 2 best bets that we have, Panthers, Rangers, over 5.5, minus 108 for a full unit.
I'm going to interrupt you, Zach, for 1 second. So Andy McNeil, former friend of Edgework, we had him on last year. I was just looking at his preview. Kiss of the Rangers and Panthers have played 19 straight games with 6 or more goals. 19 straight games. Their last 19 matchups have had at least 6 goals or more. Absurd.
Oh, the unders do. The unders do, boys.
I actually did not know that because I don't really look at the past history all that much. But yeah, that's pretty absurd. Pretty absurd. Absurd.
Combine that with a triple best bet on the over.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah. This one might be regulation times 0-0.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Now, as for today's,
I almost feel like I have to double check. I almost feel like I have to fact check this because it's so made up.
I would probably fact check.
Yeah. 19 straight. Oh god.
Yeah. No, not a trends guy, but
continue with the picks. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely. I'm looking at the last 10.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see the last 10 and the 4-3, 4-2, 4-3, 4-3, 6-2, 5-3, 5-2, 4. So I've done the last 10, and it's been 10 at least. So very possible. How many have those been Shesterkin? Well, at least 9 of them have gone back to 2021. So the last 9 games have been in the last 3 years.
Lundqvist before that. I'm at 11.
Yeah,
But also,
it's
who
not
knows
like they
who
didn't have.
was starting? Like if it was Quick or whoever they had before that.
True.
But still, I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. I don't think that.
Yeah, the previous games were Lundqvist, Bobrovsky.
Georgiev ones.
Yeah.
Wow, Andre Pavlik.
It's a lot. Yeah.
17 back to Andre Pavlik.
I know this is a riveting conversation, but I'm clicking into these box scores and they're mostly Shesterkin and Bobrovsky. I see one Halak Bobrovsky.
Any Dan Blackburn in there or something, or
Antti Ranta.
Al Montoya, maybe Al Montoya sightings for the Rangers.
19.
No?
You got a Shesterkin, Alex Lyon.
The Lion.
Well, but yeah, the Lion. Ooh, and maybe it's
The
a
last
sign for
one
the Cats.
was a 3-2 overtime game on November 20th, 2016.
Wow.
Was the last one. 19. Wow.
Wow, we're gonna kill an 8-year trend with this over tonight.
8-year, 19-game trend, triple best bet, no shot.
Should we go all in and lock in like first period over, second period
Yes.
over, third period over? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. I'm in.
Oh God. All right. Well, tonight's best bets. There you go. The one that won't
Over
win.
5.5,
the,
over 6.5, over 7.5. All the alternates.
Yeah. The alt.
Yeah.
The alt.
Panthers Rangers over 5.5 minus 108. And then, well, maybe this is the one we should have taken here, Charles. 0-0 regulation draw plus 22,000. Yeah, that's where we want to be. That's the bet we should be locking in after finding that out. And then for tomorrow's game, one best bet here. Pavelski anytime goal scorer plus 330, and that is $30. So our normal unit of $100, we're gonna go $30. So almost a third to win our normal unit of $100. So those are our best bets for the next 2 games. Thanks to everyone who tuned in here today. We appreciate it. Obviously, no show here tomorrow. We'll be back on Friday to preview Friday's game, Saturday's game as well. The chat here today, this was a playoff intensity chat. I saw the comment there by Charles. Playoff intensity in the chat. That's what this was. So thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. As for the poll, just want to update everyone on where that one finished because we did do the Panthers one. The Stars, 74% as per the chat. The Oilers, 26%. I don't know.
At least this time it adds up to 100. So Money's still trying to figure out where that other 1% went. And
look, I sent you guys the screenshot. You guys saw it. That was the number YouTube gave to me. I read it quickly. I was just trying to go through. I read it and I was like, wait a minute, where's the other number? So I just threw in an extra 1%. I could have been wrong. It could have been 1% either way, but there was an unaccounted for 1%. I sent it to you guys to prove. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Rob, Moretto, Alber, thank you guys very much. As always, we do appreciate it here. We'll be back on Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time for more picks and previews. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the game throughout the remainder of the week and into this weekend. And good luck on your bets.